Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the C.I.C. Lounge. I'm Peter.
I'm Jen.
And today we're going to jump back into it with the Lower Decks, episode 6 of season 4.
Marching right along.
Yep.
This will be Parth Ferengi's Heart Place. Don't say that 5 times fast.
Yeah, right.
So I did look up the title where this comes from, and it's a play on a British dark comedy, Garth Marenghi's Dark Place.
Okay.
So I guess for those of you who watch British television in 2004, there you go. There's a random nod from Lower Decks.
I guess we'll have to find that and watch it, and maybe it'll,
I don't know,
be some parallels.
I think it's just a play on Ferengi. There's not much that rhymes with Ferengi.
And dark and heart.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this episode a lot. It kind of I'm liking this season so far because from seasons 1, 2, and 3, we're seeing a lot of things happening with the characters, and now with season 4, we're kind of pulling those strings and we're seeing what's happening. I mean, you have Boimler's narcissistic or like hyper focus. What am I trying to say here? His hyper fixation on doing everything. And trying to be the best at everything.
Yes.
He in this episode just goes absolutely crazy with watching television. A commercial? What is this?
Right. And it talked about commercials within an episode or within the programming and whatnot, and mind control. And
then like the stars above on the painting or whatever sparkle.
Well, they sparkle, but you'll notice that looks remarkably like the Paramount logo. in the background.
It does.
So.
And then you have Tindy and Rutherford, and they're obviously everybody's been like, what's going on?
Shipping them, yes.
And now they're forced into this like romantic situation, and of course they're blushing like crazy every time they say something or something, they're forced to do something. And at the very end, what do? They like snuggle up they
literally like, we're just friends, we're whatever, and just like it should be. And then of course they climb into a Jeffries tube together, close tight quarters, and you see feet.
But it's like the way that they get into the Jeffries tube is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Tindy, he picks her up and throws her in there, and then he crawls in there on top of her, and their legs are like intertwined, two lovers in a bed.
Exactly. But there's nothing there. It's platonic.
Absolutely.
It's totally whatever. Even though Ransom, the first officer, clearly wears the badge of honor, like the horniest ship in the fleet.
Yes, I loved that.
With no married couples aboard. Not that there aren't married people aboard, there just aren't married couples aboard.
Yeah, exactly.
Because obviously the Captain Freeman is married, but yeah.
And then last but not least, you have Beckett Mariner, who is, of all people, she gets life advice that she takes, and I think she took it to heart, from a Ferengi.
I believe this Ferengi had appeared in a previous episode.
I believe it was season 3 that we see him in. I'd have to go back and double check, but they do have a friendship that has gone back before the show even starts. They reference how long they've been friends.
And I think this is, this kind of brings to light something that I had mentioned a few episodes ago, where Mariner keeps falling into this cycle of self-sabotage. And as an audience, you can only take that trope so many times.
Yeah.
You really want your characters to grow over time. And Mariner had, again, like, repeated the cycle as part of the episode, but it was this Ferengi character who was like, come on.
You have everything you need.
Grow the fuck up already.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell, So we'll see where the show goes. And that's not to say that Mariner can't be brash or ambitious or assertive or sarcastic. She can still be all those things. She just doesn't have to keep self-sabotaging.
There's so much potential with her character to just be her goofy, energetic, crazy self without destroying herself in the process.
I agree. So one of the things that this episode did was brought back Grand Nagus Rom and his wife Lita, the former Dabo girl at Quark's bar on Deep Space Nine.
Sadly, not the same voices.
No, it is.
It is?
I looked it up.
Really?
Max
That did not
Grodenchik
sound like Rom.
and Chase Masterson both came back to reprise their role.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I stayed and watched the end credits to make sure.
I'm glad somebody did their homework.
No, I did. Yeah,
I clearly didn't.
They came back to reprise their roles, and you might not have been able to pick up Rom so much because he probably wasn't talking with the fake teeth.
Yeah.
You know, like he had a bunch of makeup, and that can make you feel the Ferengi makeup at the time of Deep Space Nine can make you feel like you had a head cold, almost make you sound like you had a head cold.
Because he did sound like he had a cold.
And the Ferengi often had these elaborate fake teeth in, so it probably affected the sound of his voice back then. And of course, as a voice actor in a studio, he obviously wasn't in makeup.
Well, I sit corrected.
Yes. So, but I was happy to see that. So, obviously, at the end of Deep Space Nine, Rom takes over the Ferengi Alliance, and it's kind of a new wave, new progressive evolution for the Ferengi. So we get to see a little bit about that. Star Trek Lower Decks is Star Trek. It is canon. So everything they do is canon. So this is...
Well, I remember that in Deep Space Nine, Rom was being groomed by the Grand Nagus to take over being Grand Nagus.
Yeah.
And Rom and Quark had a kind of a rivalry there because Quark thought he should be the Grand Nagus.
Well, Quark represented the old school of thought, and it's interesting, we do know eventually the Ferengi Alliance does join the Federation, and so this episode was like the first step into that process happening. One of the things that I was reading online was that it's interesting that this comes about, but if you remember the teaser opening in this episode, it's a Ferengi cargo ship of some kind with stuff on board, and one of the Ferengi on board is actually in cahoots with our mysterious ship.
Yeah.
So
but gets killed.
That and ultimately that it doesn't pay off for that Ferengi because the whole ship is destroyed. But it means that someone within a known alien species like the Ferengi knows who these aliens are, knows what's going on with that. So we get a little bit of a tease into that larger seasonal arc of what's going on with these mysterious ship that's attacking pretty much everyone.
Yeah.
They've hit the Romulans, Klingons, Ferengi.
It hasn't hit
Orion.
the Federation yet.
Not that we know of.
Not that we know of.
Oh. But this attack kind of spurs on the Ferengi to kind of join the Federation. And the back and forth between Rom and Lita and the negotiations and whatnot, I thought that played pretty well. I definitely thought Rom came off a little dimmer than even Rom was. Like his obsession with baseball was a little weird.
But that was on purpose.
It was on purpose, but I think it went on just like a beat too long.
Fair.
Because this is Rom. This is our first iteration of Rom since Deep Space Nine, and we only really get to see that true nature of who he is at the very end of the episode. Then he's done. So.
But I did like that they, even with Lower Decks, they still implemented the trope of the Admiral thinking because he's an Admiral, he knows best and he can do this better than anybody else. Yeah. Meanwhile, the Captain Freeman, is sitting there just like, you are shit up.
Yeah.
And then proves it at the very end. She's like, oh, here, sign this.
Right? Freeman at the end. I mean, and that's
Freeman for the win.
That's what she's supposed to do.
Yeah.
So.
But, it's because we've talked about this, almost every single Admiral that we've
ever seen in Star Trek, every Admiral is a piece of shit.
Starts out as a giant douche nozzle and either dies or becomes enlightened.
Yeah. And I think Robert April from Strange New Worlds is the only one that's might stand a chance.
Yeah.
But even he in the beginning wasn't necessarily what we were hoping for. Like as far as admirals go, you're kind of meant to be a little more adversarial with him. So I think Lower Decks playing to that, and they really maybe should play that up a little bit. That admiralties, or what is it with being an admiral that you just lose your mind? Like,
yes.
You
I
know,
would love to see an episode where they have an admiral on board the ship where they're going on a mission and he is wreaking havoc throughout the ship. And of course, Mariner is going to be like, "What is going on?" I mean,
yeah,
maybe that's how she ends up being demoted again.
I don't know, but like bad admirals in Star Trek is kind of trope, and I think they really did a nod to it. Although I don't even think that was the intention. I think it was just we need something to contrast Freeman being the hero. So
Dance for me.
insert an admiral. It could have just as easily been the captain of that ship. The Toronto was the one they were partnered with in this episode, which I believe is a Parliament class starship.
What does that even mean?
I
A parliament class?
I think it means it's a diplomatic ferry boat. Basically, would be my guess.
Well, okay.
I don't know. You got a legal classification of ship on Strange New Worlds because Marie Patel, Pike's girlfriend, is
a lawyer.
Is a lawyer
And a captain.
And a captain.
She
Why be one when you can be both and go through twice as much education? I don't know, but she did.
I will say that like another trope that they focused on with this episode is how I don't know if you remember in like most of the episodes where they had any dealings in Deep Space Nine with the Ferengi, there was always one Ferengi saying something to the effect of what they say, the only reason you're here is because I was giving a favor to my cousin or
Yeah.
my brother or
Yeah.
there's always one character on a ship or in a playing the Dabo tables or something like that
Oh, yeah.
where the only reason you're here is because it was a favor to my cousin.
Right?
So of course we had to have that one in there. I loved it.
Oh, yeah.
There's one thing that I caught at the very end watching the episode again is the four of them are always working on this one shuttle. They're constantly working on it, and every time we see it now, there's a little more graffiti, a little more something on the outside of the ship. Like now there's like all four of them doodled on the side of the ship.
Interesting.
You haven't noticed that?
I haven't really been paying much attention. No,
I catch weird little things like that.
I should pay more attention to that sort of thing.
But I think, and viewers and listeners, let us know what you think. I think that we, Jen, you and I, should write a script, Cop Landlords.
Yeah.
I mean, it was one of the TV shows that Boimler was watching. I think we should write a show called Cop Landlords.
Cop landlords. Well, it must have been pretty good. I mean, it had Boimler hooked.
Oh, Boimler was...
just get right into that.
He watched one episode of that, but if you go back and you watch, he really gets sucked into Office Secret Love or something, whatever the name of the show was. And when Ransom calls him up wondering where he's at, Boimler's still watching the show. So I think he binge watched like 8 hours of this show of Secret Lovers.
Right.
So, that's definitely his show. I think he was very much enamored with I would go so far as to call that a soap opera-esque kind of show.
Kind of like a telenovela or something. Yeah.
So maybe he's really into telenovelas.
Could be.
But no, another thing that I love about Mariner is like just the random shit that happens around her. I mean, when she asks for 2 shots of what was it, Romulan tequila,
Two daggers of the mind.
or yeah,
Which is the title, I believe, of an original series episode.
Daggers of the Mind.
Dagger of the Mind.
Nice.
Yeah.
But then she ends up randomly with a shot.
Just randomly gets a shot.
Her friend's like, "Where did you even get that? He didn't even have anything." She's like, "Doesn't matter." Just throws it back and chucks it. I liked this episode. I thought it was very funny, but it was also good to push these characters forward. I mean, obviously something's going on between Tindy and Rutherford. Hopefully we get Boimler becoming more independent and stronger in his own self-worth. And same with Mariner. I think Mariner and Boimler kind of parallel each other, where Boimler's like super like, I don't know what to do. And Mariner's more like, she knows how to do it. She just doesn't want to take that first step in doing it.
Yeah, and they complement each other very well. It's probably one of the dynamics that really makes the show work.
Yeah.
Is that Boimler Mariner dynamic? Yeah, I believe it's been renewed for season 5.
I hope so. I like the show.
I don't know what's beyond that. Of course, between the writers and actors strike and whatnot, it's been hard to move anything forward.
Yeah.
So,
Well, happily, the writers are no longer striking, so good.
yeah, so the writers are back to the table, which means at least pre-production end of Strange New Worlds should be getting underway as far as stories and scripts and meetings and that sort of thing. But until the actor strike is settled, they of course can't roll into anything. But progress is progress.
Yeah.
So
It's little baby steps right now.
Yeah.
But we're moving forward, so that's good.
yeah,
Anything else?
that's all I have for this episode.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next time. This has been CIC Lounge. I'm Peter.
I'm Jen.